Hello and welcome to the Property Roundup here on iPropertyRadio with myself, Carol Tallon, the show where we chat to industry experts to get a view on activity on the ground and to learn about new trends emerging. The show is sponsored by daft.ie, Ireland's most visited property website. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by a returning guest, Regina Mangan, Managing Director of Liberty Blue Estate Agents. Regina, it's great to see you again. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you very much. The sun is shining here in Anrang in West Waterford. What could you ask for?
You are a walking advertisement for the area, Regina, and that view and that blue sky is beautiful. So look, you're based in West Waterford today, but obviously your office is based in Waterford City and you operate across the wider Waterford market. So you might just tell us, how are things right now in Waterford in terms of the property market?
Well, it's been a challenging year for buyers and sellers because stock levels are drastically down. And I think that's what we're seeing across the country regionally in outside of Dublin. And looking at the Daft figures there, the last quarter in Munster, 5.1% increase in prices across Munster. And we've seen exactly the same in our office, actually a bit higher. We've achieved 6% over asking across the board. In some cases, 14, 18% over asking. That's to do with supply and demand. And then when we look at stock levels are down 19% right now compared to this time last year. So that's very difficult for buyers and sellers. For us as a business, we've had a great year. We've actually had our best year in business in 26 years. That's a combination, I suppose, of not just selling and renting homes, but I suppose in how you work smarter and better. In terms of population, we're seeing like huge rises in population and inward migration. According to all the experts, we're going to have another 1 million people living in the Republic of Ireland in the next 26 years between now and 2050. So it will be challenging. Last year, government have been speaking about building 30,000 homes, and builders and developers are obviously the ones that are getting up in the morning and taking all the risks and building these homes. But according to Guru Jim Power, economist, we need 45,000 homes built every year for the next 10 years. So, it's going to be a challenge. And one thing I'd say for any buyers that might be listening, it's been very challenging in terms of interest rate hikes. We've seen 10 interest rate hikes in the last 15 months. Mm-hmm. That's not going to go on forever. Probably maybe over the next 12 months, the EBC will do another couple of interest rate hikes. But I heard a great terminology. Date the interest rates, marry the home, right? The interest rates, this is a temporary situation. It's not long-term. And I think a lot of buyers are waiting for the market to cool and they're saying, hang on, we'll wait off. We want prices to drop. I can't see that happening. It's supply and demand, rising population, and a deficit of home building. And obviously there has been little to no social homes construction over the last 20 years. So we are running with a major backlog, as you well know, Carol.
But look, when you're talking to intended home buyers, whether the first-time buyers or if you do have any rare investors, buy-to-let investors, or those looking to trade up or down, what's holding them back? Is it more an interest rate or a lack of ready supply?
Biggest challenge for somebody want to move forward in their journey in life is actually securing a suitable home. Mm-hmm. We did a survey in the last week and we sent it out to over 4,000 people, 4% response rate. Apparently that's good. And a huge amount of people want to plan for later living, and there are no single story homes. Like bungalows, are like hen's teeth. And in terms of planning, there is no plan for later living. That's a huge issue. Like we've sale agreed a lovely little house in rural West Waterford for a couple in their autumn years. He's 84, Anna is 79, and they need to move to Waterford City to be near their adult children. It's proving enormously challenging to find a home that suits their needs.
And Regina, we've just recently done a whole show on this with Pat O'Mahony, who was putting forward a really progressive idea for essentially retirement villages, but not to be confused with kind of the nursing homes that call themselves retirement villages. These are privately developed, privately owned, but essentially coming together of suitable homes within the community so that we can actually extend our housing options for elder living for both the public and private sector. But at the moment, the private sector is completely overlooked for independent senior home living. And, so we've done a whole show on this, exploring options, but it is clear that it is a looming problem. And, we've talked about it being a looming problem for a number of years, but actually it's coming home to roost much quicker than people expected. So actually, you're describing you're describing that for that couple today. So actually, this is not a problem coming down the track for Ireland. It's a problem that's there today, and we're not fully considering when we talk about supply and demand. I think we're not very good at breaking down what that demand is.
Absolutely. And if I could just add to that, my parents moved from rural County Limerick, an old farmhouse that was too big for them and in need of massive repair. They didn't have the means or the, I suppose, ability to sort it out. And so they moved to Dungarvan to be near us. And I found a beautiful semi-detached bungalow. But what works about that is that bungalow is within a beautiful residential estate. Mm-hmm. There's lovely green and beautiful trees. I'm not completely sold on the idea that all elderly people should be living with elderly people. My father complains about going to the Dacia Centre because they're all flipping old, right? So a lot of elderly people, it's good for our communities to have social, private, elderly, young. We need that in order to thrive. And like the neighbour across the way cuts their grass.
Yeah.
And they do things for them. And so if everybody was old, that would be problematic even in terms of their mental health. They don't want to be all old people hanging out with old people. And I think the way that estate in Dungarvan is that you have that bungalows with 2-story homes. And the other thing is, I was speaking at the Construction Federation conference the other night, and I just put out there, what can you do in terms of future-proofing homes for different audiences? Can we have downstairs bathrooms, not WCs that kind of really toilet and sink, like a proper bathroom? What about in years to come where that living room could be converted to a bedroom because there's a bathroom, and then you have one person with a mobility issue who can live downstairs? They don't need a big kitchen. Elderly people, they might need a small kitchen. Their family have flown the nest. That kind of thinking needs to be explored, in my view.
You're absolutely right. And actually, in terms of future-proofing homes, I think while they're looking at it from the public sector, the private sector could actually follow the lead in this, but approved housing bodies have done some great work around the design of future-proofing homes, particularly, say, Circle VHA and others. So there are definitely the public sector or the approved housing bodies really have taken the lead on this, but the private sector could really do with learning from that as well. And by the way, I would just echo what you're saying there about actually the importance of elder living options being part of the community, and a diverse community in terms of age and socioeconomic and a whole range of, because actually that was one of the really important points that Pat made, that actually it doesn't work if you're out in a suburb just with people who are just like you. You have to be part of a thriving, dynamic community that's full of diversity, because that's where we all thrive. So I think that's a really important point. But we haven't done. I think not just for elder housing options for public and private sector. I don't think we've done. I don't think we plan housing well for the demographics that exist today. I'm not sure if we have a really good understanding of what they are, particularly post-COVID.
No, and absolutely. And look at the 20-somethings. Let's not forget that they're enormously sophisticated in terms of their traveling experiences. They're jet setting here, there, and everywhere. Paris, Vancouver, the whole lot. And they're seeing what their lives are exposed to. They're on TikTok. The way they consume information is enormously different. And I think that the whole one size fits all model is no longer suitable, you know. And even if you think about somebody going out for a run in the morning, having a shower, where could they have a shower downstairs if they're in? Because 3-bed semi-D is really, I suppose, the main house type in demand in terms of affordability and density and all the rest. But how can we change the configuration that it's adaptable for different audiences, or not have them all the same, have chunks for different audiences, just a little bit more choice?
Look, choice is always something we'd advocate for. You touched on something there that is just such a passion of mine, and that is the difference with how people are consuming information right now. And by the way, take us, for example. You're in the heart of West Waterford. I'm in the heart of Connemara today, despite the Dublin signage behind me. And we are having a conversation about, you know, the changing nature, not just of the property markets, but actually the changing nature of how property is consumed, bought, sold. And it's something that I know you and I have connected with over the years because we have a shared passion for innovation and technology. And for that reason, I'm very excited to hear your news. So you might just share with our audience the announcement that you'll be making in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Carol. I have written a book in collaboration with a UK book writing company. It's called How to Build a Smarter, Faster Irish Estate Agency. And I can't believe it. I started it in January, February of this year. And it'll be typeset now in the next 2.5 weeks, ready to go. We were going to launch it in December, but we decided with the craziness of Christmas, we would launch it in January. So I'm excited and extraordinarily nervous about it as well, to be honest, because we all have a touch of imposter syndrome and fear of being judged. But you know what? Drive on anyway is kind of my attitude.
First of all, Regina, congratulations. Massive achievement, massive amount of work. But it's interesting to say you can't believe it, because I can absolutely believe it. Every time I talk to you, I feel like there's the makings of a book. And I suppose really what surprised me when you told me is that I would have thought your first book would be about the property market, because you are so you're a wealth of information about not just the property market locally, but understanding and being able to communicate how some of the larger demographic trends translate into the Waterford market. And that's not a given. You know, not everybody is able to do that. And I think you do that extraordinarily well, and you have done over the past number of decades. So we're delighted when we see you communicating that about the property market. But I think it's really interesting that you've gone straight in your first book, and I'm saying first, but your first book is about how to build a smarter, faster, better Irish estate agency. This is a topic I'm so excited about, and I'm really excited that you were the one to write this book. So let's start with the basics. Regina Mangan, what is a smarter, faster, better Irish estate agency? What does that even look like?
Well, I suppose, look, if you're to ask me why in the name of God would I write this book, and what does it mean, I feel after 26 years in the business that I wasted a lot of time doing things the long way. And there was a couple of key moments in my business and life where I realized change was needed. And having seen the growth in the business, the growth in myself, the growth in my key people, and understanding those lessons, I really was compelled to share them. And really to share, it's not for 1 minute, smarter, faster, better. It's not that we're smarter, faster, better. It's about how can you get smarter. Smarter for us has been about thinking smarter, working faster, using technology. Why waste a whole load of time on menial tasks? Faster is about adopting new technology, new ways of doing things, being ahead. I always say, let's be in front of this rather than behind it. Better is about continuous improvement. I'm obsessed about improving myself, my business, my people. And my absolute goal for next year, 2024, is to build a rockstar training culture. And as a result of that, I've seen in the last couple of years, probably even in the last year, if I'm to be completely honest, that we've more and more people contacting us who want to work with us. So we've got our crap together, should I say, a bit more. And there's a big part of the book where I talk about the bus, the people on my bus, have the right people on the bus. That's chapter 3. And if you don't have the right people on the bus, you cannot have a successful business. So I suppose it's warts and all, it's stories, it's made up of sharing on how I believe if you adopt some of these principles and learnings that I have, that it will help you have a better business.
Regina, I have a million questions. So we'll start with one, and anybody, and I'm really glad that you brought it up about the team, about that you were obsessed with improving yourself and the team and building a rock star culture. And I'm going to ask you a question that I hope isn't unfair, but anybody who's worked with me or in the proximity of me will understand the basis for this question. It can be exhausting for your team when it can be exhausting for other people when you see potential in them and you're determined to realize that potential. It can be exhausting for other people. Have you had that experience?
I have, yeah. But to be honest, when you have the right people on the bus, they go with you. And what I have learned is that we have to hire on values. And if we don't hire on values and similar, I suppose, mindsets, then it's going to be a disconnect for the person coming to work with us and for our business. What do I mean by that? One of our values is that we're constantly innovating. So if we're hiring and somebody hates change, they're just not going to work out with us. It's just not going to work. It doesn't mean that they're not a great person. They're just not going to be the right fit. Now, it took me a long time to realize that. Okay, a really long time. If I think of the team that I have now, look, Maria is with me 20 years next January, and she has gone through an enormous change and growth, just like myself. Cormac, who was an estate agent with us for 10 years, left to do his own thing and came back 2 years later. I persuaded him to come back and do marketing with us and social media, and he's grown with us. So he gets it. I love people who challenge me. So, and like when I say the right people on the bus, that's not just your team, that's your extended team. We have a lady called Paula Ronan who came on board for 3 months as a marketing consultant. And that was pretty much 8 to 10 years ago. I can't remember, 8 or 10. And we have fierce, heated conversations. But I need that. You have to people who are better than you, with you, who challenge you and who are growing themselves at the same time.
Can we talk about diversity? Because when I think about your team, I think that you were genuinely, and I'm saying this in a very open and transparent way, because obviously we've known each other and worked together for a long time in the past. And I think that you are one of the best managers managers that I've seen in this industry in terms of managing the people, the processes and everything. And I think that being a really good manager can be an advantage in some ways, but I do believe it can be a disadvantage in other ways. Can we have a conversation around diversity? Because you've always had a very strong team, but from the outside, maybe a very female dominated team, almost all female. And I see that changing. So can we have kind of a conversation around diversity?
I'm really glad you asked me that, Carol, because if you were to say to me, what's the one biggest mistake that I've made? And that is about not having diversity. So for years, we've always been more or less all women. We had Cormac there. People used to say, is he the token man, right? And the funny thing is, I was interviewed many a time about the glass ceiling, and I was like, look, To be honest, my problem is I probably don't have any men in the business. That was a fatal mistake. You have to have diversity. I hired a general manager last November. He's with us a year this week. His former background is corporate banking. My God, he has been he has played a pivotal part in the transformation of our business to the next level. He's in a great sense of humor. He's very thick-skinned. He's very smart. His background is corporate banking. Okay. Again, that's somebody who has an edge on myself and Maria in terms of financial, and he's financially, I consider myself quite savvy, to be honest, but he takes it to another level in terms of the communication with clients. We have Mert now, who's in the office. We have Dara. Yeah, I mean, we are way more diverse, and we are way better as a result. Way, way, way better, and much happier, actually.
Yeah. I from the outside, it's a dynamic I was curious about, and I've seen the change externally for the last while. And so I think that sometimes there can be a fear when you're growing the team, because look, we all know part of the problem that contributes to lack of diversity in any sector, in any industry, in any business, is that there's a sense of familiarity. The one I know is the one I trust. And it's at such a deep unconscious level that we really need to almost actively overcome that. So I'm really, thank you so much for sharing that so openly. You talked,
just to add to that, in terms of diversity, we have 2 of our team based in South Africa full-time. So we have 2, they're called virtual assistants. I don't like calling them that because they're very, very, very integrated to the team. We've our office set up with a big screen, and we've a marketing suite. So we meet with them every morning for a team meet. But they're incredible, and they add more diversity to the team even again.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong point, and I hope anybody listening in today, even if they're looking at growing the team, even if it helps them to make a more conscious step to look at the diversity makeup of the team, I think that will be helpful. Regina, you talked just about one of the motivating factors for you writing this book is because, like every business owner, we find things out the hard way. And look, I say it in a joking way in our office, but my daughter also works as part of our team, so she gets a bit of a harder time than the rest. But I do make the point that you don't have to make every mistake I made. You can just learn from some of the ones I made. You don't have to make them all for yourself. And I say it jokingly, but there is a sense of truth in that, as in, look, and that's not to say that what worked in the past won't work now. And obviously things change, but there is a feeling that as an entrepreneur, you really just, it's almost like a form of a form of torture. Like you want to keep doing things the hard way, and if there's another way to learn, then obviously we want to be doing that. You described some key moments where you knew change was needed. Now, from inside, you're running a successful estate agency with a huge lettings arm to the business. What are the kind of key moments, or can you share those with us, where you knew change was needed?
Well, another huge lesson for me really was working with clients whose values weren't aligned with ours. Like, to me, if I was to go back in time, or for anyone to listen, don't put up with toxic clients. Mm-hmm. And like, I'd one client that we suffered for 8 years. And to think when we fired him, it was absolutely like having the biggest burden removed. Then recently we had another client with 10 properties. We sold him most of them. We were managing them for a number of years. But as time went on, his demands were growing and he wanted to pay less and less. He was dictating the terms. And interestingly, he was the one who took up the most time, right? So he got a discount, which we charge 10% to manage properties. And I tell you, it's such a labor-intensive business. He wanted for a different fee. We negotiated just a little bit now, but then he didn't want to pay for admin charges. He wanted basically the all-inclusive buffet, right? And, we don't do that anymore. We want to run a happy business for our team, our colleagues, and our customers. And if you've got a client who's basically hardcore, negative, beating you down, eating loads of time, not wanting to pay your fees, you're not setting yourself up for success, because you're not on form. You haven't got peak performance. So the pinnacle for me was when I was having a conversation with Risha, who is based in South Africa, and she runs our maintenance, and she's amazing now. And she takes so much pride in her work, and she does a rock star job. And she said, Regina, I said, tell me about your challenges in the job. And she said, look, really, it's just this particular client. And I said, okay. So when you look at your values, it's very easy to decide, well, this is our roadmap for how we do business. And for us, our mission is to bring happiness to our colleagues, our community, to bring happiness to our clients, our colleagues, and our community. And sure, if everyone's depressed about the situation, sure, that's no good to anybody.
Yeah.
So look, we helped him move on in his journey to another agent, and it was all very amicable and very professional. But it's been a huge relief. And in terms of the law of attraction, we plugged those holes with other business. And I would say, trust yourself, trust your team, and put a value on yourself. That's my advice.
I think that's really good advice. And look, I'm very conscious that people listening in will no doubt recognize or they'll, what you've said will resonate with them. But like them, and like you, I've been in the position where sometimes when you're running a business, when you have to meet payroll, sometimes you have to take on work that you ordinarily might choose not to do. And, it's great when you get to the position where those kinds of decisions become few and far between. But, there is, I know, an economic reality that sometimes, you make the decisions and in your core when you're making them, we shouldn't really be taking on this client, but you take them on because
you feel desperate.
It's a bad place. It's a bad place to be making business decisions. So, like, leaving that aside, because I absolutely agree with you.
But I had one thing to it, though. If you are taking on a tricky client, set out your boundaries. Set out your boundaries at the outset. We made mistakes. I particularly made the mistakes of taking late calls. I suppose the disrespect parameter started to go up and up. Set out your stall at the outset. If they're difficult, set out your boundaries, and that definitely will help alleviate some of the problems.
Listen, no, I think that's very good advice. At the end of the day, actually, I think businesses thrive when you get the right client, and sometimes the right client will be like, I have one client that now we're working together so long that I can jokingly say to her, she is the client who manages me the best, not my team, who manages me the best, but actually, so she would definitely be one of the ones that would keep me on track in terms of deadlines, in terms of deliverables. But if I was looking for somebody on my team, I would want that person on my team. So, sometimes difficult can be, maybe not the right word. So there's a huge difference between clients that are very good at managing you, and you need to be as good at managing them as ones that dampen the spirit of the business.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. Look, you can have demanding clients who have good values.
Yeah.
And that's different. I'd be accused of being demanding myself sometimes, but I would have good values. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and there is a difference. But look, one of the things, and I'm conscious of time, and I know we don't have a huge amount of it, but something you touched on there about lettings being extremely labour intensive. Now, you and I share a passion for prop tech and all sorts of emergent technology and innovative processes and systems. That means actually lettings shouldn't be as labour intensive as it is right now. So can we talk about some of the technology that you're using right now across the business? Maybe tell us some of the technology that you're using that's working well, and feel free to share maybe some that you've tried that just didn't work so well for you.
Well, FixFlow is a game changer for us. So that is a self-service platform where clients, tenants can log on in 40 different languages. They can upload their problems, their issues, maintenance issues 24/7. It's just a really good system. There's also tutorials and videos that you can upload. So the idea is that it lowers the expense for our landlords so that hopefully tenants can figure stuff out by looking at these videos. Simple things like doing having an inspection app like Inventory Base. It's about having standards, really, systems and processes. Communication is key. Sometimes it's the simple things, having your morning meetings, having your systems around your inspections. We've gotten better at that, consistently every week carrying out routine inspections rather than leaving it to 3/4 way in the year where it's big panic. We need to get the properties inspected. It's about looking at your jobs and how many you've got to get done. I do think the RTB is an absolute disgrace of a situation in terms of registering tenancies, the length of time it takes. It's not fit for purpose. So that's hugely labour intensive for agents, and it's not consumer friendly at all. So Inventory Base, FixFlow, we use Acquaint as our CRM system. We use a man down device for health and safety for when our team go out and view properties. And I think that's something that everyone needs to be aware of, is our personal safety. Okay. What other stuff we use? Okay, Xero is brilliant. Look, you've got to mind the money. There's a section in the chapter about minding the money. You need to know how much money is coming in, how much money you're spending, and being totally on top of your figures and your forecasting and managing cash flow. Like, absolutely the bedrock of any business. In terms of, obviously, there's social media, you could call that technology. Artificial intelligence is the talk of the town. That's where it needs to be at. Future thinking agents need to be in front of it in terms of using it, in terms of creating a better customer experience. We use Active Campaign now in terms of managing leads and marketing. We use a platform for utility transfers. Just done a blank on the name. There's so many pieces of technology that I mention in the book. But you need technology, because the last thing you want to be doing is spending loads of time on basic tasks that technology can improve on. Splink is a brilliant one. Absolutely brilliant. Somebody pays a deposit, you send them a link and they pay. It's fast. And I think back of how we used to be 6 years ago in our office. Oh my God, it was like a train station. People coming in and sending emails. Emails are a waste of time. And one last one, Planify. Absolutely amazing piece of kit and GDPR safe. So your people upload themselves, their references and their admin, all their paperwork. So it's highly organized and highly efficient. Also, it purges in terms of tenancy applications. We get a huge amount of applications, but we want to be respectful to the people that are unsuccessful to reply. So it's automated. Automation's powerful, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Regina, thanks for that. That's a great technology stack that you're giving us here. So can you share with us, maybe, look, we might just return to the RTB in a moment, but just in terms of the technology, have you any idea about the savings that can be achieved? So essentially you're cutting down on email. I mean, email is the killer of time in any business. So anything that cuts down on email, we're all about. But in terms of, say, are you able to share any stats with us in terms of, say, the number of units under management today compared to maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when you had more manual processes where you still had to go in and check about deposits, where everything was still being done in email or over the counter way?
Best stat I can give you is that we increased our operating profit by 10% this year, which is a colossal growth. And that is, there is no one silver bullet. Mm-hmm. It's small things. I can tell you that we outsourced our accounts. That was probably one of the best things we ever did. We outsourced our accounts function. John has a financial background. He's an accountant. He worked in corporate banking. I mentioned that. But even just stupid stuff like when we looked at the files, the team previously were printing out all the landlord statements, this, that, and the other, all this printing. Now, that's on me, not them, that I didn't realise it, right? So in terms of, we need to be paperless. So again, it's about our environment, but also we need to always be asking ourselves, well, why are we doing this? What's the benefit? So it's lots of different things. It's about looking at our fees, making sure that we're not providing all-inclusive buffets for our clients, that we are making sure that our technology and our team are well trained, that you're not letting little charges fall off and forgetting to charge them, stuff like that.
I'm glad you brought up fees, because actually it's and I feel like I'm in a really good position to say this, because I am not, and I never have been an estate agent, but estate agency fees in Ireland are too low. They're too low for businesses to invest in their team, to invest in their technology, to improve the user experience for buyers, sellers, renters, and consumers of this sector. And Waterford is one of the cities a number of years ago that we identified where newcomers, particularly after the crash, were coming into the market and driving rates down. Now, there was a number of cities and large towns were having this issue, but Waterford was definitely one of them. In terms of fees, has a state agency, and this is a big question, it's so answer as you feel is fair, but a state agency in Ireland, has it been driven too far into the ground to be able to pull back?
No, I don't think so. I think ultimately we all battle with this, and I battled with it during COVID with Maria, and we really analysed, well, what are we doing differently to our competitors? Mm-hmm. There are 53 estate agents in the city and county of Waterford, I've counted, right? So if you're going to go out for a piece of business and compete on fee, you've lost already, in my view. So I say to people who say, well, I can get our house sold for whatever, 1.2%, I listen to, well, look, are you looking for the best price, the best experience? Are you looking for the cheapest agent? We're not the cheapest agent, and nor do I want to be, because there's no way that we can invest in technology, in training, in our marketing. We are always sharpening the saw. So it's about creating a great experience and value and getting a fantastic result. For example, you just have to figure out, how are you different? So 3 properties we sold in the last couple of months went between 13 and 25% over asking, not because of the market, but mainly because of their presentation and the staging. So like, we actually didn't do the staging. We talked the owners through it because they were budget conscious, and we gave them the ABC, and that transformed the outcome for them. And then what's your sales progression policy in your business? You can't sale agree a property and then go into witness protection. How are you taking care of your sellers and your buyers? And that's really important for us. So we can stand over our fees. We're not going to be the cheapest, and nor do I want to be. And I think agents as well listening, it isn't always, and I say this to our sellers, it's not about having the largest list of properties for sale, because you have to be able to turn them over, and you have to look at your clients. You have to price right. You have to have the correct pricing strategy, and you have to be able to help your client move forward in their journey. It can't be about the fee. The fee is the net outcome, in my view. And we're here to serve our customers and do an amazing job. And we can't do that for 1% or 1.3% or even 1.5%, in my opinion.
I am genuinely delighted to hear you say that, and that's coming from a non-vested interest point of view. I have an interest in improving the property ecosystem for all consumers within it. And I believe that requires a much greater focus on innovation and technology, and that requires investment. And if there's no margin to invest, then actually I feel like we're in a really unsafe place for the future of a state agency. Regina, final question, because I'm happy at how, I think that's I absolutely agree with you in terms of the value proposition. In your book, How to Build a Smarter, Faster, Better Irish Estate Agency, do you teach estate agents or intending estate agents how to compete on value rather than fees?
I think it's dotted throughout the book, definitely. Again, there's no silver bullet. It's knowing what your values and your mission are, having the right people on the bus. Like if you've got someone who's answering the phone and they've got a drag voice and they don't know what your properties are and they don't know, how to pitch, well, how can you be confident going out to the market? Because you're only as strong as your weakest link. So I talk about that, about being a challenger brand, standing out. How come so few agents go on video? You have to be doing video now. And you have to show people who you are. And I spoke about the conference the other night, the construction conference, and there was a gentleman there that I was dying to meet for ages. And I asked a client of mine to introduce me. I could not believe it. Do you know what he said to me? He said, Regina, I feel like I already know you. And I said, really? How's that? He said, I'm always watching your videos. We get caught up in likes and shares. And Lisa Novak, she's amazing. I watch her. She's in Australia. She's really worth following. She's in the top category of estate agents. There's going to be loads of haters out there when you go on social media. I speak about the haters. I speak about the people who talk about you. I don't care. I'm not for everyone. My business is not for everyone. That's fine. I'm absolutely good with that. And in it, I just say, the importance of video and your personality. And that gentleman the other night saying, I feel like I know you. There are people watching who don't say anything. And one day they just pop up and say, hi, I want to work with you. And that has happened. It's been amazing.
Regina, listen, you're preaching to the choir to me. I feel like I've been banging that drum for such a long time. And I think that there is a real movement in terms of digital PR and digital, I go so far beyond digital marketing, like it's digital communication. That's how people want to consume and interact with your information. But I'm just going to close on this final note. I interviewed Terry Gorry recently, and I was asking him about what he does, all of his TikTok, and he has such a respected presence on social media. And maybe ask him why he thinks he's probably one of the few, or certainly there are very few solicitors who take the same approach. And he said, I don't know, but I'm glad. I'm great. If no other solicitor discovers TikTok, that's great for me. And I just thought it was a really funny but truthful way to say it. So the reality is, not every estate agent is going to go out and talk about the market, because there's a certain amount of altruism in that as well, because you're sharing a lot of information when you don't know how that's ever going to come back to you. And in my experience over the decades, it comes back in spades. So I'm really delighted to see the content that you and your team are putting out, and I'm really excited. I can't wait to read the new book, How to Build a Smarter, Faster, Better Irish Estate Agency, which is due out in January 2024, and we will definitely be sharing the links and all of the information in relation to that. So thank you so much. That was Regina Mangan, Managing Director of Liberty Blue Estate Agents. My thanks to Katie Tallon and the production team at Hear Me Roar Media, and huge thanks to our show sponsor daft.ie, Ireland's most visited property website. And thank you indeed for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Property Roundup. In the meantime, please be sure to check out all of the other Irish and international real estate and construction shows on iProperty Radio.